You often hear people talking about the idea of flow when discussing Call of Duty Zombies maps. But what do they really mean when they talk about flow? Is it a feeling we get when we play a map, or is it something we can actually break down? Well, I've done some thinking and I feel like I've nailed down that the feeling of flow in a zombies map is comprised of the interaction of movement and progression. Let me explain. Almost every zombies map shares the same core objective: survive increasingly difficult waves of enemies. You can't do this with the loadout that you spawn in with, so you're going to need items that will help increase your damage output as well as the amount of damage you can take. This means finding better weapons, ways to upgrade those weapons, and ways to increase your defense, like perks and items like shields. Each map has a limit to how powerful you can be, which varies based on the game the map is in, and the weapons and items available to you in that respective map. But most will allow you to get to a point where you have weapons that will deal infinite damage to zombies, and where you as a player are much harder to take down as opposed to when you spawned in. Your quest to become more powerful is progression, and it's present on every single map. There are many maps where Easter egg progression is basic power-based progression, however the two generally separate at some point, and stay separate. Although progression varies between maps, the basics are the same. Spawn, get a decent weapon, unlock areas around the map while you work towards unlocking the Pack-a-Punch machine, getting the perks you need, and any other item and equipment quests on the map you're playing. Progression has also become more complex as these games have gone on, mostly in that many require you to now build wonder weapons and upgrade them rather than simply getting them from the box and throwing them in the Pack-a-Punch machine. But the core ideas are the same. So, now let's talk about movement. As zombies players, we have been conditioned to always be on the move. It's the first lesson that many of us learn. Never stand still if you can help it. Camping strategies are actively discouraged by gameplay, especially in the newest games, with hyper-aggressive zombie AI, which will mess you up if they're too close for too long, and will now spawn absolutely everywhere, including ahead of you. We have perks that emphasize movement and speed, and shields that will allow you to face away from zombies while you move. Training became the community's preferred survival strategy, which involves moving in a circular motion in the player's spot of choice, resulting in zombies gathering behind them. The scarcity of ammo for wonder weapons makes this strategy especially viable as it maximizes their efficiency, letting you take out as many zombies as possible in one shot. I'm not saying that camping is not a viable option, because it absolutely is in some maps, but training is a very safe strategy to employ on almost any map. So then, how do these elements combine to create map flow? Well, ultimately this depends on the design of the map, but it's the way that players progress through the map and how their movement is directed. The best way for me to explain this is to give some examples. The earliest zombies maps, for the most part, have excellent flow. Their smaller nature means that traversing them is usually a non-issue, and players are encouraged to progress through them just to get the basics like the box on Nacht or the perks on Verrupt. To prevent players from only getting the essentials like Juggernog and the box, maps like Shino Numa have random perk spawns each match, and all maps have a mystery box that moves after too many spins. This lays the foundation for a design principle, which basically dictates that players should have reasons to traverse the entire map, and should never have a reason to simply stay put indefinitely. Things get more interesting for Darius, because Treyarch based an entire mechanic, that is, unlocking the ability to upgrade your weapons, around unlocking the whole map. It's also one of the first maps that will allow players to cut corners when navigating thanks to the teleporters that can be used once you have traversed it once on foot. This design has been applied numerous times and in different ways and on different scales since then. As maps have become larger and more complex, two things have happened. Firstly, players have gained more incentives to traverse these larger areas with buildables, upgrade quests, and Easter eggs. And secondly, movement started becoming an issue because players are not getting faster, but maps are getting bigger. Stamina up posed an optional solution for some players, but there needed to be some alternative methods of traversal. So fast travel expanded into a staple mechanic in most maps to prevent too much movement-based momentum from being lost. But the principle of progression remained the same. Unlock the whole map on foot and you'll be able to get the perks, survivables, items, weapons, and upgrades you need, as well as faster ways to return to those areas of the map. I think Treyarch also realized that making players run across a map just to press a button or pull a lever was not actually that exciting. So we started to see lockdown events in the Blundell era maps, which are now also commonplace. Lockdowns work quite well because they don't ask you to stop moving, but they do restrict your movement. They're a great challenge and they test your ability to maneuver in tight spaces, often with limited resources and at early stages of the match when you're quite weak. A map that, in my opinion, blends all of these elements perfectly is Shadows of Evil. What you get is a large map, with 5 main areas. One in which the players start out in and acts as a hub area, 3 separate districts, and an underground area where Pack-a-Punch is located. Each of these locations has a lockdown that players need to complete to unlock Pack-a-Punch, but they also have perks, and each of the 3 districts has a shield part and a civil protective fuse, so there's heaps of reasons to explore and return to these areas to unlock things later. On top of this, each of the districts also has a portal that players can unlock, which leads them into the subway area, where all the other portals are located. This is great because it allows you to complete the rituals in whatever order suits you, and go directly to the subway to complete the final one once the others are finished. As soon as that's done, players are exactly where they need to be to access their weapon upgrades. If they ever go down and need to visit other parts of the map to recover, or for any other reasons, the portals act as a fast way to get them there. And on top of all that, there's also a tram system that can transport you between districts and is an essential part of getting the Apothicon swords. The player's momentum is never interrupted. You're never asked to slow down or to repetitively traverse insane distances. As you progress through the map, you can be always moving during standard gameplay and during the rituals, and as a reward for sticking through the setup process, you have a plethora of options to get you places faster if you need to rebuy items or if you're chasing a quest. It creates a beautiful flow. Other examples of maps that I've played and I think have great flow for these same or similar reasons include most of the World at War maps, Kino der Toten, Ascension, Origins, Der Eisendrache, Revelations, The Final Reich, 9, Ancient Evil, and Classified. So then, this brings us to Alpha Omega. When you think about it, this map has everything I've spoken about for it to have a great flow, as well as other elements that should make an awesome map. It's got progression that requires you to unlock most of the map to get set up. It's got fast travel. It's got 4 awesome upgrades for the Wonder Weapon. It's got a layout that will allow you to circle back on your path with ease. It's even got a lockdown event, one of the best in COD Zombies thanks to the sick beat that you get when you do it. The issue with this map is that Teyarch seems to have completely forgotten not only how to put these elements together in a way that flows, but they have also added a number of features that actively break any flow that there was. Players will start off making their way to the power switch and can choose to go left or right. Nothing wrong with this. After power is activated, they then have to go down to the bunker, past Pack-a-Punch, and complete the generator lockdown. Now in a map with flow, after completing this lockdown, which is so close to the Pack-a-Punch, you'd expect to be granted access to it immediately. But no, in Alpha Omega, after this lockdown, you now need to go back up to the houses and vent the gas from the bunker by turning 4 valves. This is where things get problematic. Not only are you forced to go back on your progress to access these valves, but you have to stand still for like 10 seconds while you turn them. I hear you saying, hey, that's not so bad. It was fine in the Final Reich. Well, in that map, it's the very first thing you do when you get out of spawn, and you can have it done by round 1 or 2. Zombies will just be walking, so it's not difficult whatsoever. Here, you will often be doing these valves between rounds 4 to 10, depending on how bad or good your team is, so zombies are far more aggressive. So what, I hear you say? Just do it between rounds. Well, I would love to do that as well. However, the second that you interact with the valve, a horde of zombies will spawn, regardless of when, and for each valve, faster and increasingly aggressive zombies will spawn. You either have to stand still and try your best not to get fucked, or run around like a maniac for like 2 minutes turning the buggy ass valve bit by bit. Whatever. Once this is done, you can Pack-a-Punch. Here is where you can choose to stop. The Ray Gun Mark II can be obtained from the box. You can access the entire map, all the buildables, perks, and the Pack-a-Punch machine. But if you're anything like me, you're going to want to use those new ray guns, one of the only unique features of this map. So the round after you open Pack-a-Punch, Rushmore will start talking to you. Interact with him and the game will screech to a halt. Zombies stop spawning for like 3 minutes while Rushmore talks to you about the Easter egg. Why does this happen in this map and not any other map where there's an important figure leading players through the quest? You know, like every other Zombies map? No idea. Anyway, now you gain access to the number pad. This thing is almost as bad as the valves, and I wouldn't really complain if this was exclusively Easter egg related, and you might think it is considering you can't access it in custom mutations, but it's not. You have to use this to get any of the ray gun upgrades. And let's talk about those upgrades for a second. Here's what you need to do to get them. 1. Build a ray gun assembly kit which consists of 3 parts, with 3 possible spawn locations each that you will spend 3 hours looking for. Activate 4 TVs and absorb zombie souls into them and enter the RNG color gas that each have like which one, why are these double upgrade and weapons until you pick up a ray gun, so you have to run around and pick up the juice and only then can you start the upgrade quest, which all have like 3 or 4 individual steps. The best way to describe this is painful. I thought this was done perfectly in the map before, Ancient Evil. Upgrade steps that are easy to remember, simple, actually fun and rewarding to complete. In Alpha Omega, it's not, I know exactly where I need to go and what I need to do. It's, I have to run around the whole map looking for 200 parts. I need to search for a bloody TV so I can get random numbers, pause the game and then write them down so that I don't forget the order. I need to stand completely still on numerous occasions just to progress, just to get a cool ray gun that runs out of ammo in a few rounds. The RNG nature of every single part of this map means that no matter how good you are at memorizing steps, you literally cannot avoid running in circles looking for things. Yeah, you can remember what rooms the parts are in, but there's no way that you can memorize the codes or the order of the TVs, and you can end up spending thousands of points trying to get the correct Pack-a-Punch upgrade for whatever ray gun you're trying to get. And don't even get me started on how shitty and boring some of those upgrade quests are. You'll be either doing menial shit like shooting light posts and throwing grenades into chimneys, or overly difficult stuff like waiting for certain zombies to spawn in the bunker and then shooting and knifing them. It's like the devs couldn't think about how to actually make a compelling quest that made sense, so they just added interactivity to every part of the map. The worst part about this is that once you have fully set up, you still don't get breathing room. Training in the more open outdoors areas is difficult because of the jolting jacks that will infinitely spawn on the roofs of the buildings and shoot projectiles at you, which you need to constantly take out. And even if you could get comfy, every round after like round 20, one of the ventilation valves will shit itself.
Warning, ventilation unit malfunction. Primary systems offline.
And you have to go back and turn it again if you want to upgrade any guns. The close quarters nature of this map and the way that it constantly makes you stop in uncomfortable spots means that you're also running back and forth buying the shield 100 times because the zombies keep breaking it when you turn the valves or enter codes into this number pad. So what you have is a map that forces you to endlessly run around it in order to progress and forces you to repeatedly stay still just to keep Pack-a-Punch open. And what happens is that this stunted progression and movement means that there is just no flow. I know a lot of people really like this map and I am being a little harsh on it. To be honest, with a competent team of players with a decent map knowledge, these sorts of things can be tolerated. And even a good solo player can have a good time if they overlook these issues, but while Alpha Omega is not exceedingly bad, these little things keep it from being good or great. It ends up being entirely average, and that's almost worse because it ends up being forgettable. The whole reason I'm even making this, however, is because I really wanted to like Alpha Omega, as it has everything it needs to be a memorable and fun map. But I just kept rolling my eyes every time I heard one of those vents screwing up. Or every time I reached one of those TVs, only to realize I was at the wrong one. Every time I had to look up a tutorial for the buildables. And then it just got me thinking about why I simultaneously wanted to play this map so bad, but couldn't bring myself to enjoy it. So how would I improve the map's flow? Firstly, I would make players do the valves prior to the lockdown, and maybe relax a bit on the zombies that spawn during these valves, so that the Pack-a-Punch can be accessed straight after the lockdown. Then, I would prevent the valves from screwing up at all, or have it so that they go under attack, like in Origins, so that you actually have an opportunity to stop yourself from having to turn them again. I'd eliminate the number pad from any non-Easter egg related stuff, including the ray gun quests. Maybe just getting straight to the point with the individual upgrade quests rather than 4 soul boxes, a code, a buildable, and then a specific Pack-a-Punch upgrade. I'd also cut out the thing where talking to Rushmore stops the game for 3 minutes, but if you cut out the number pad, then it's not really an issue because it's purely Easter egg related. This takes out a lot of the RNG and makes progression more streamlined and will prevent the constant disruption of your movement and momentum. That's it really. If you change those things, the ray gun upgrade quests might still be a bit of a pain, but nowhere near as bad as before. And the map would flow a lot better because you'd be running in circles less, you'd know exactly where you need to go, and standing still would be less annoying because you can do it in early rounds. It could even be a true classic rather than just a painfully average map, and fit in with those small but sweet maps like 9 or Classified that are just plain fun. Anyway, that's my take on the idea of flow in Zombies and why previous Zombies maps have caused me to struggle to enjoy Alpha Omega. Do you agree with my ideas on this, or am I spitting bullshit? Let me know in the comments and subscribe for more epic gamer content.